Thank you so much for tuning in to today's episode in which we will be discussing 10 yet still hidden gems for the Nintendo Wii. If you enjoy the Wii and are curious about more games to check out, you can find a video I did about a year ago on the same subject. This particular video you're watching now is actually a part 2 of sorts to a video I released a few weeks back. In that video, I discussed 10 forgotten or overlooked Wii games that I think are pretty fun, but don't qualify for whatever reason for my main list. You can also find that video in the cards here. If you find at any time during the video you accidentally enjoyed yourself or found the information helpful, please consider leaving a like. I tried to find only games that nobody prominent online has talked about, and while I don't know if I succeeded, I definitely tried my best, and I'm only aware of one of these games being discussed already. I'd also like to note that unlike in the last video I did on this subject, these games are in no particular order. They are numbered, but they're not in any specific order. And now, without further ado, Batman the Brave and the Bold. To be honest with you, this is the game that I've seen someone talk about. After I'd already picked it up and gotten really happy with my choice and decided to talk about it, I saw somebody used it as one on their list. Full disclosure and everything, this is the only game I think I've seen anyone talk about, and I did decide to do this game because I came across it separately, but I don't want people to think my goal is to try and rip anybody off. Check out their channel, they have some more hidden gems on that list, all of which are not going to appear here. Anyways, back to the actual game itself. I had always seen the Brave and the Bold cartoon on TV, in passing, while it was still in the air, and I always thought it was pretty funny.
S-words. Let's just get him back in the cell so we can leave, Beetle.
Wait, 1 second. I want to try something. Hey, Copperhead. I heard you're a big dumb idiot. Is that true?
Absolutely false.
Now see, I thought he was going to say yes. Because, you know, of the S in there at the end? Yeah, he's good.
If I ever sat for an episode, I really enjoyed it too. I did never put effort into following it though. I have to say, Diedrich Bader as Batman is completely brilliant. The quips and puns are amazing and often very, very bad. The style takes up after the old serials and the writing is of real quality. So the show turned out to be pretty good, but what about its game? What if I told you it was developed by WayForward, known for making pretty great quality sprites and animations as part of pretty great quality games? That was the main thing that piqued my interest, and it really paid off to check it out. The game is broken up into episodes, and in each episode, the companion of Batman is different. Much like the show, there is an opening segment which introduces the episode and is only sometimes tangentially related to the main plot. I was a little disappointed when Robin played pretty similar to Batman, but I got really excited when I got to the second episode and could play as Blue Beetle. This gave the team room for creativity, and they took the opportunity. It's a very enjoyable co-op experience, and it's really easy to have fun with this game. The combat isn't the most deep thing in the world, but it's very punchy and satisfying, and it's fun to try different methods of beating up enemies. Now, the actual combat might not mix it up all that much, but the game does have some stuff to break up the pacing. It's also not too terribly long, and I find it never started to wear on me. It's a fun co-op beat-em-up that I totally recommend. Great-looking visuals, sometimes hilarious dialogue and pretty funny plot lines, and unique partners make this game a lot of fun, and I would absolutely say a hidden gem.
See you later, suckers.
Death Jr. I played through a significant portion of this game before making much of a decision about it. It's pretty simple in the end though. It's fun, and it's funny. I like the gameplay. The level design ain't half bad, and the platforming is, well, not the best, not the worst. The game is really about the combat. Although it does have collectibles, it's actually really fun to get the collectibles because you are getting pieces of a new weapon, and it's exciting to try it out once you've earned all the parts. Now, is it the best platformer on the Wii? I mean, no. Is it a hidden gem? Well, that's pretty subjective, and actually, so is the first question, I guess, but I think so. It's got a great art style, great humor, a fun plot line, fun characters, and it's just fun to play. You can actually play the game as either the titular Death Jr. or his crush Pandora, or better yet, co-op, where you play as both. which is actually a pretty unique inclusion for this kind of game on the Wii. I mentioned weapons earlier. You have a scythe with Death Jr. or a whip with Pandora for primary combat, and guns for keeping your distance. The aiming controls work well, and allow for good snappy switching between the two different kinds of weapons to handle your ever-changing situation. Holding Z brings up the gun mode, which I often use to actually control the camera. You can control it with plus or minus, but it's just easier to use the aiming mode. The combat works well, and it flows pretty good. You collect these little yellow beads flying around, and they go towards special abilities that you unlock, like a room-clearing move or a flip that hits multiple times for tons of damage. I played on the sickly mode, and the game put up quite a challenge, but it also felt proportional. Nothing felt unbeatable or way too overly powerful. Everything felt like increasing the player's skill was the way to win. Some levels are really fun and interesting style and concept-wise, and the game, like I said, is fun. I really think it is a hidden gem. It does look kinda jagged though, huh? Well, this game is actually a port of a PSP game that came out several years before it, which means it doesn't actually qualify for the list, right? Well, actually the game only has to be console exclusive, and honestly with the pointer combat, I think it totally qualifies as a game that utilizes the Wii as its system really well. Some textures could have used a little work and more models could have used a polygon boost, but everything looks fine at the worst. It's a fun game, simple as that. World of Zoo. My brother-in-law was over while I was playing this game to see how I felt about it. We chose our starting animal to be penguins and then immediately tried to make a puffin. The game actually has a super in-depth customization system for each animal, and it's ridiculously fun to do. You can also write short descriptions for the animals, so we made a penguin that was the product of a Nazi lab experiment. I recommend this game. The customization system alone is a lot of fun, but the general gameplay is too. Not to say it is all that similar to Viva Pinata, but it does feel like the same audience would enjoy this game too. You have tons of animals to choose from, and there's a lot of toys to get for your animals. The art style is a lot of fun, and there's a good bit to do, but I do caution you that it might feel a bit repetitive working through each animal type. It's just a unique and fun game that's pretty simple, but very enjoyable. Monster Lab. This game, published by Undiscussed Software on the Wii, is very weird and pretty unique. Honestly, the first impressions were very meh, but I kept playing and it's a lot of fun. You collect pieces of random junk, and you can use them to make monsters. You use the monsters by shooting them out into the world and controlling them from your tower. The game is, weirdly, a turn-based RPG, but with a neat twist. That actually has to do with the concept. You use certain body parts to attack certain other body parts. The trick is, different appendages and bodies you assemble do different attacks and have a different typing, in a rock, paper, scissors type situation. There is plant, robot, and then just monster. You run around the world map and encounter roaming monsters. Defeating them collects junk. Like I said before, you use the junk to make monster parts. You do so by playing minigames, which are pretty quick and pretty fun. The better you do, the higher the quality of the part is, which makes you focus when doing the minigames. I have to say though, I love the art style. It's really unique and interesting, and everything fits together well, for everything that doesn't fit together really well. It's fun trying to make a monster that is balanced across 3 types in combat, durability, and even appearance. Sometimes that is difficult, but it's still fun to try. It is pretty fun to do the little quests and go around the map fighting monsters. My first impression of the game wasn't all that strong, but when I started to figure out the point of some of these mechanics, I started to really get into it. Now, during the production of this video, I did find out this game did come out on the PS2, but I do think the Wii pointer is really what the minigames were designed for, and thus I think it works out as a Wii exclusive still. Trackmania. The Wii has racing games galore, and that's great. It can be fun to play games with the Wii Remote as the wheel. Personally, I find it harder to get the controller to do exactly what I want for input, but I will say that it's still usually an enjoyable experience anyway. To preface this, I should say that I'm not sure this particular game even supports that type of input. Precision is pretty important though for this kind of game. I can't even really say it is a racing game. Trackmania is definitely a series that people who prefer the PC are more likely to recognize. You have challenges that need to be fulfilled in a time trial style format. To get gold is usually very tough, requiring incredibly tight timing and control. You race ghosts, each one representative of a certain time goal. Beating the fastest one of the course will net you a gold. The tracks can be pretty ridiculous or pretty simple, but it's obvious to me that the developers had a lot of fun working on this game. There are a ton of challenges built into the game, and when the Nintendo Online was up, I believe you could even share your score with others. Not to mention your own courses. This game's biggest appeal, at least to me, is the incredibly in-depth track editor. The options are fairly limitless, and you are working with a pretty ridiculously open system. It's actually really cool to see this on the Wii. It has very solid graphics and a super cool track editor. The gameplay's fun, but definitely for people who prefer time trials to races. You aren't going to be getting a conventional racing experience out of this game. It definitely feels like a challenge mode, but the fun layouts and trials, as well as the track editor, make for a super fun and rewarding experience. In that I mean playing the main mode unlocks credits, and then you can use those credits to unlock more editor pieces for the editor mode, which makes it super fun to just play around and see just how much you can fit in a level. Rubik's World. Honestly, I could tell just by looking at the cover that this would have to be a pretty fun game. It's, of course, a puzzle game, hence the name, but it's got some interesting and unique ideas. The game comes with several modes, and as you play and get farther in each of them, you start to fill in the white blocked world with colored cubes. The minigames are all pretty fun and have a decent amount of depth to them. You end up with a lot of character coming out of these simple little multicolored cubes. I tried out all the minigames, but I don't want to spoil them all here. Basically, it's a lot of fun, and most people would get some kind of fun out of it. It's just a simple fun kind of game. Thor, God of Thunder. So, let me explain something about this game. When we were dating, I bought it for my now wife, and she played the beginning, but never really played it again. I actually thought it looked fun, and Red Fly Studios makes good stuff, so when my other games fell through, I finally gave it a shot and pulled it off my shelf. When she played it, it looked really fun, but the reviews at the time said that it kinda sucked. I will say that it absolutely has some problems. It isn't a super long game. I guess I beat it in only a couple of hours. That's in a way a good thing though. I played on hard mode, and while not incredibly difficult, it presented a little bit of a challenge. I went to record some gameplay after I played some, and I literally have footage from the end of the game. I beat the entire thing. The combat is varied enough that it doesn't get boring, and you can unlock new moves throughout the game that help you out in tough situations. Using different moves to mix it up is fun, but the enemies themselves also keep changing things up on you. You would have to keep track of different kinds of enemies with their own ways of fighting. Some have shields, some are big hulking beasts, some fly. That kind of enemy variety type thing. Once you get about halfway through the game, they introduce these enemies that are constantly on fire, and you have to use Mjolnir to create a gust of wind to put them out before you can hurt them. And left untended for too long, they will relight, usually with some help from other enemies. So then you're keeping track of your moves and abilities you can use, but also thinking about which enemies need to be put out, and which ones are already put out, and which ones you should take out first. The waggle is fairly minimal, and the QuickTime events in the game are very satisfying, because most often you would be doing the motion of bringing the hammer down and getting a pleasing feeling cracking an ice monster's jaw open, or whatever. just as an example. The other interesting thing about this game that I find to be the case with some of the other Marvel adaptations is the dipping into the characters not seen in the films, usually because the developers assume that they would never come about in the universe, and it wouldn't matter. If that is the case, of course, it still wouldn't matter because this game has a completely unrelated story to the movie. All that being said, the Fire Demon Surtur is actually a boss in this game. You fight him, kill him, and then imbue Mjolnir with the Eternal Flame. It's kinda hilarious to think that this game bought him out 6 years before he was properly introduced into the films. Another thing I love about superhero games is the unlockables, and Redfly Studios knows how to do unlockables. I love it when a game goes out of its way to let you unlock different costumes for the main hero. You get a handful of Thor designs to unlock, and it's very fun to do so. There's also a combat mode, which I barely tried. The biggest problem with the game, and this could very much be a deal breaker for a decent chunk of people, and I would understand, the frame rate is pretty bad. You probably actually get used to it after playing only a couple of minutes like I did, but it is very choppy. This is the biggest thing that drags down my recommendation. There's a decent chunk here to occupy you for an afternoon and potentially never again, but the experience would be very fun. I literally sat down for a couple of hours and beat the whole thing somewhat by accident. Although this game doesn't break any of my established rules because it is an original version developed for the system by Redfly, and this game was also on the 3DS, but it's a console exclusive and it plays to the Wii's strengths in some aspects, so I think it gets a pass. Rodea the Sky Soldier. This game is actually one that I assumed everyone knew about by now, but I made that mistake before in assuming that people knew about Pandora's Tower, which I briefly featured in the opening of my first Hidden Gems video. The games in the opening teasers are just games that I assumed people recognized by this point, or ones that I thought were interesting but not necessarily hidden gems. Just to be safe in case people don't, I make sure it's completely clear as to what the game is. Regardless, we are talking about Rodea the Sky Soldier right now. This game's pretty dang fun. It was developed for the Wii by Yuji Naka and put out when it was developed and people loved it. Well, no, actually, the publisher said, "The Wii is old now." This was 2011, and the Wii still gets some new games every now and again. "Let's port it to the Wii U and 3DS." Both dead now. The ports that they developed aren't super great, but if you get an early enough copy way back in 2015, you are graced to a pretty dang fun Wii game. I've heard a couple of people compare it to Sonic mixed with Knights, and while I guess I can see it, personally I think I've never played anything quite like it. It is really a fun game that has you targeting and flicking the Wii remote to platform and maneuver the stages. If you really want, you can use the D-pad to walk around, but it's rarely necessary. I kinda just like exploring the world though. Finding the hidden medals in the levels and trying to pick up every little collectible is super fun. If you think you'll like it, you probably will. If you just have to hunt down a copy of the Wii U game that includes it, or just try to find the Wii disc by itself. It is really a bummer that the game had to be released this way because it really could have gone over well and might have even had more of a cult following today. The Force Unleashed 2. This is another game developed by Redfly. I've actually wanted to make some sort of retrospective about this company for a while now, but I don't really have much time these days. It only took an entire year to get this video out. I still want to work on that video, but I'm trying to get a lot of sources together and make an accurate video about them. All that being said, this game is, in my opinion, better than the HD counterparts. It's got tight gameplay, fun force powers, and very nice controls that aren't overwhelmed by waggle. You've got good secret unlockables like lightsaber colors and alternate costumes. Fun gameplay, good level design, dual wielding the lightsabers is of course super fun. It's just a super solid game and the frame rate isn't even terrible, so that's good. I recommend this game as its own experience. If you played the HD game, be aware that this is a bit different. I did also beat this entire game, but that was a couple months ago now. This studio makes games that are very fun and very playable. I can just play through the whole thing. They aren't ridiculously short compared to some games, but they aren't that long either. Either way, they are a good time, if not a long one. Marble Saga Kururinpa. This game is an adorable experience from start to finish. If you've played the other marble game on the Wii, you'll have a good idea of what you're getting into, but that doesn't mean you won't enjoy yourself. I could tell just by the cover of this game that it would grab me, and it sure did. It's a fun marble game that has you manipulating the stage using the tilt of the Wii remote, and trying to reach the end, and maybe grab some collectibles. I do love unlockables, as I'm sure you've realized by now. This game has fun unlockables too. You can unlock adorable different marbles like this cat or this ladybug, and they have their own stats, which is super cool, and gives you a chance to pick a marble that better suits your needs at your skill level. The other neat feature of this game is that it actually features genuine physics. Some games like this seem to fake physics. Like, if you were to try to do something absurd, it wouldn't work because the game isn't even programmed to actually handle it. But this game will literally let you flip to the other side of the stage if you can figure out how. Speedruns of this game are insane. If you want something cute and simple, but deep and fun, this is a great pick, and I've been having a really good time with it since I picked it up. When I actually got to a point where my disc stopped working, I went out and bought another one. I just wanted to own it, and I wouldn't be deterred. The way the physics feel might be a little wonky at first, but once you get the hang of it, you can do some incredible things. It's also, for whatever reason, supports controlling the game with the Wii balance board, so that's a thing. So, it only took about 16-ish months to make these two videos from start to finish. I have actually been working on it on and off for that long. Unfortunately, 3 of the games I had written up and ready to go fell through recently. I'm only trying to feature games that haven't been talked about much by big YouTubers, and somebody covered them. That's fine though, because it has motivated me to finally finish working on this video and get it out. I'm finally between semesters at school. Actually, a lot has been happening since last April. I got married and moved in with my wife. I'm getting further along in college, and it's super time consuming. And I don't have a lot of time to work on videos, but this one I really wanted to do. I have no shortage of ideas, but a big shortage of time, and a little bit of a shortage of motivation. The other thing that delayed this video is that I recorded all the audio, having looked up a tutorial online on how to set up my microphone, and I got terrible advice, and I'm having to re-record all of it, and it was hard to get the motivation to do so. Anyways, I really hope you enjoyed this video, and could take away at least one game from it that you'll love. It's a video 16 or so months in the making, so I hope you enjoy it. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to subscribe to this video. Doing so will let you know when this video comes out again. And leave a like if you enjoyed it. Leave a dislike if you didn't, and don't forget to also subscribe to the like and dislike buttons so you can get notifications for when they release new content. Jesus loves you, and so do I. Tune in next time, and goodbye.